Hi there, and thanks so much for joining me for another video. I'm Erin Eno, and yes, it's time for Fruit of the Month once again. This month is the month of June, and we are going to be painting this lemon branch. So grab your paints and let's get started. Today I'm using my Baohong Academy cold press watercolor paper. It's 140 pound, 100% cotton. I have a piece roughly 5 by 7. I have a jar of water and a paper towel. Actually, I have 2 jars of water just in case one gets a little too contaminated. I have my Royal Talons Van Gogh paints in my palette, and for brushes, I have a Curry's store brand brush. It's a size 12 round in their 2500 series. And I also have 2 Princeton snaps rounds in a size 4 and a size 2. So we're not going to draw this lemon out before we paint it. We're just going to jump right in and paint. So I'm going to do a lemon right about here, and then there's going to be a stem coming off, and then a few leaves. So I'm going to give this a go without drawing. So to start, I'm just going to start with the lemon, and I'm going to use my Azo Yellow medium. Maybe I'll put in some permanent lemon yellow, sorry. It's a little bit of a, oh dear, I did not mean to do that. Oh well, I have yellow on my brown paint. It's a little bit of a cooler yellow, just to get some cool yellow tones in there. And I think I'm just going to plunk in a little bit of yellow ochre. Okay, so to start, I just want to get the shape of the lemon down, so I'm just going to use like a medium to light wash first, and I'm just going to put my lemon right about here. So I'm going to start with the little tip that's at the end of the lemon, and then I'm going to paint my lemon shape. Hopefully you can see this on camera okay, I hope. And I want to try to keep this a little on the wet side because I'm only winging it, so I want to be able to pick up any mistakes I make by keeping it wet. Okay, so there's our lemon, and I want to go in, sorry, just put a little bit more pigment down there just so you guys can see it a little better. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect because lemons aren't going to have a perfect lemon shape. So I'm going to rinse my brush off and take most of the water off because I want to pick up a little highlight right about here. And because it's still wet, it's going to kind of seep back into itself and should be a kind of a soft highlight. We're going to add more yellow later as well, so if you think it's looking a little pale, don't fret. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to take my size 2 brush, and I'm going to go into that yellow, and I just want to put a little bit of texture in here. Actually, I think what I will do is just mop up a little more highlight by picking it up with my paper towel, just like that. So I've picked up the pigment and I've picked up a little bit of the color too, so, or a little bit of the water too. So when we go in to do this texture, it shouldn't bleed too much. So just take what the smallest brush you have, or whatever brush has the finest point, and I'm just going to put a few dots of yellow. I'm just holding my brush upright, and I'm just going to put some random dots in there. And you can go into the yellow outside of the highlight if you want, because it's just going to blend into that, but it's just going to stop you from, you know, just putting deliberate dots right in the highlight and ignoring everywhere else. You don't want that. Okay, so this is just giving it some texture, because lemons have those little dots on their skin. And if it's looking a little heavy, you can just go in and pick some of those dots up with your paintbrush, just like that. Okay. Now I'm going to go in, this is still wet, but not sopping wet. So I'm going to go in and I want to put in some dots in the yellow area, but I need these to be a little darker now, obviously. So I'm going to use raw umber, see if that does the trick, but I'm going to water it down a tad. I could probably afford to make it a little greener too. Maybe I'll dip in a little bit of sap green. So these will just be the shadows of the dots on the rest of the lemon. So you don't want a lot of water. So I'm going to take the water off my brush and just go in and get a little bit of that paint, and we'll see. Hopefully this won't bleed too much, and it's bleeding too much. So I'm going to let that dry a bit. So what I will do is establish where the stem is going to go. So I'm going to take my size 12 and mix up some leaf color. So I'm going to use sap green, and the lemon branch itself is green, and it's kind of a nice rich blue green. I'm going to need a lot of it for the leaves because the leaves are fairly big. I did not, look what I'm doing, guys. I just knocked my brush into the purple. Oh well, made it a little deeper, not bluer, but I'm going to add in some ultramarine deep to get it a nice deep cool green. So I'm going to go to my number 4 brush, okay, and get some of that green and just take some of it off. I'm just going to go in with a wash, and where the leaves come out of the stem or the little branch, the little kind of nubbies that kind of jut out, okay, so it's not like a perfectly smooth branch. So I'm just going to put a little kind of a nubby here, make it, it can be a little deeper than that. Okay, then I'm going to kind of curve it in, just do a little indentation, and then just come up. It's a little bit of a curve. Now I'm doing this in a light wash because I want to add highlights to the stem after, okay? I don't want it to be one flat green color. But basically right now I'm just kind of laying down where I want the lemon to go. Then I'm going to go to my size 12 and we're going to plunk in some leaves. And again, I'm just going to do a light wash first. And I'm going to do a leaf up here. And it's going to have some curve to it and stuff, just to give it some movement. Okay, just like that. And I'm just going to fill it in, and we're going to go in and do some details on it later. This is dry enough now that I think I can go up to it with the leaf. So I'm going to do a leaf that's kind of behind this lemon. And again, give it some shape and movement. Don't just do like a perfect oval. I'm just going to fix this one up here. Okay, so I'm just coming up to that lemon. Go all the way up. And then I can make that leaf shape. Just like that. So you can see we're just getting light shapes of leaves and the lemon. I'm going to just put in the little stem that goes to the branch, Same here. Okay, and then maybe we'll put another leaf in front of that leaf. So again, just going in with the wash. I think I'll have it come branching off of here. Okay, so there's a little nubby kind of thing. And then the stem of the leaf. And I'm gonna get a hard edge there because I waited too long, but that's okay. We're gonna camouflage that when we go and put the detail in. I just want it light because I want to leave a light area down the center of the leaf, just to be that like main vein of the leaf. So now I'm going to go back to my size 2 and see if we can get those dots in on that lemon without having it bleed. So I don't want a lot of water on my brush, just a little bit of this raw sienna and the what did I do? Put satin green in there. So now I'm just going to do the dots for the shaded parts of the lemon. And they're going to seem a little dark, but it's okay because we're going in with deeper yellow. Okay, so don't be too alarmed thinking, oh God, my dots are really dark, because they're going to get washed away a little bit when we go in with the second layer of yellow, and they're going to get covered up by the yellow and some of the shading. So it's okay for them to be a little dark towards the bottom here. And if you are, you know, kind of freaking out about it, you can always just take your paper towel and tap them up so they're just that much lighter. Especially near the top, I want them a little lighter because there's no shading up there. And don't go into that highlight with these darker dots. Okay, just like that. And I will tap some of them just a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to go in and go back to the leaves while that dries. And I want to bring in, I'm going to continue with this size 2 brush. So I want to bring in the top part of that branch where it attaches to the lemon. And I'm just going to do like a little kind of roundish thing right there. And that'll just be that piece that attaches to the lemon. Then I'm going to take this brush again, and I just want to go along the bottom edge and then the right hand side. Okay, I'm going to stop when I hit that little nubby part that comes out from the leaf, because we'll add detail to that later. Okay, then I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush and just kind of soften this out. We can even go deeper. Maybe I will go just a tad. Deeper on that one side. We can even go in and go deeper later once this dries. Okay, then I'm going to do this leaf here, and I'm going to just do this little stem part because it has a little nubby thing. So I'm going to make that look like it's kind of attached to that stem like that. Okay, same with this guy here. And this one here, we'll say that's attached at the back so you won't see the little nubby part. Now I'm going to go back to my size 12 brush and I'm going to turn my board. So I want to make it look like this is like the back of a leaf and there's a raised vein on the back. So I'm just going to start with the dark towards the edge here. And I'm going to leave a light area. This is why I like taping my paper to a board. I think I've said that like a gajillion times. It's just way easier than trying to pick up a thin piece of paper. Now, if you're using a big brush with a fine point like I am, remember it holds a lot of water, okay? So if you don't want to have things get out of control on you, just make sure you take off as much water as you can on your paper towel. Okay, so I just cleaned and dried off my brush a bit, and I'm just going to start dragging this down. Okay, so we've got like a highlight at the end of the leaf here. And I'm going to keep that little raised vein. Just like that. I kind of lost a little control here. I lost some of my vein here, but that's okay. I never said it was going to be perfect. So that's good. It's got some kind of highlight towards the end, and you can see that vein down the middle. And we will do the same thing to this guy here. Okay, so I'm going to be very careful around the lemon. And around this leaf that's going to be in front of it. Okay, so I think I will just put the shape like that. And again, we want a vein going down the middle of it. So I'll leave a light line down the middle. And that's not drying as evenly as I would like, so I'm going to tap some more in there. And if it doesn't dry evenly, just leave it, who cares? It might give you a kind of a cool effect anyway. I will try to fix this one up though, because it is bugging me a bit, I'm not going to lie. I don't want to work with it too much because then I might get some real funky things going on there. And then we have one more leaf to go. While that leaf is drying, I don't really want to go in and, you know, throw another layer on that lemon. So I'm going to go in with my small brush and maybe we'll finish up some detail on the branch part. So I'm going to use my size 2, okay, and the stems are kind of shiny, but they also have a little bit of brown in them towards the top of the nubs where the leaves come out. So I'm not going to do this green everywhere. I'm going to do it along this right edge, right hand side. And I'm going to stop at that leaf stem, and then I'm going to go right to the top, like so. Okay, then I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush, and I don't want to bring that green out too far but I just want to soften this edge so it looks like it has a little bit of shape to it. And you can see this leaf is drying a little wonky. So I'm just going to take my damp brush and kind of blend this down a bit. I don't know, is it just me? I find that greens tend to dry unevenly, and I think I put my hand in my painting here. I'm pretty sure I did. So I'm going to see if I can get that up, because I don't want this in here. And I think it's going to come up okay. Yay. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to that raw umber and just put a little bit of brown at the top of these little nubby parts. Okay, not too much. Just so it has a hint of brown. I can probably do some on the back of that stem. I'm going to go back to my green because I really should have deepened up this stem as well. Put a little more there. And I will go in and add a little bit of shape to that top green part that is coming out of the lemon. I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to come back and put some shading and more color on the actual lemon. Okay, so I think that's dried enough. I'm going to clean off my size 12 brush, and we're going to go back at this lemon. So I'm going to go into this yellow that we have, okay, and we're going to go over the entire lemon, but avoid that highlight area. Okay. So you'll see those dots that we kind of put down, they'll kind of fade out a bit when we put this brighter yellow down. Plus we're going to put some shading down at that bottom there. Okay, so I'm just putting it everywhere, like I say, everywhere but that highlight part. So you can see I'm just avoiding that in that circular kind of shape. Then I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush. You can switch to a smaller brush if you want for this, because you don't want to bring any more water in, but you're just going to soften that edge where the highlight is. Okay. And I'm just going back and tapping, because when I do this, you're picking up paint. So I'm just tapping it off on my paper towel. Otherwise you'll lose the highlight that you have in there. So I'm just softening that edge, just like that. Now I want to go in and deepen up some areas on that lemon just to give it some shape. And I'm going to use that raw umber again, but I'm also going to bring in a little bit of this oxide red. Okay, and I'm going to really water it down. I'm going to add even in some yellow, as a yellow medium to that, because I don't want it too dark. So it's just a browny yellow. I'm going to tap off the excess on my brush, and I'm just going to go and start putting some in around the base of the lemon. I almost said lime, just to give it some shape. So you'll see that because I'm doing this, that's why some of those darker dots that we put down are not going to be so strong. Are not going to be so strong. I don't know if that was grammatically correct, but So we've got some shading down there. You can bring it up just a little bit up here and up here, where the leaves are going to kind of cast some shape to it. Okay, and again, I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush. You can let this bleed out, or you can just kind of coax it along and soften it a bit with your brush. Because if it's not smooth, it's just going to add to the texture of the lime, or the lemon. I did say lime, there you go. And that's not a bad thing. I think I'll go in and grab some of that green, mix that in with this yellow or browny yellow that we made, and just tap a little bit down at the very base. Just like that. Might have done it a little too much there. And then we can go back in and start playing with the leaves a little more. So I'm going to go back to my size 0, or my size 2 rather, and go into that dark green for the leaves and just make this even more contrasty, give it more depth. That might have been a little too much paint in there, but it's all good. Okay, and I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush again. I'm just going to turn my board again, and I'm just going to really lightly soften this edge. Like so. So for the remainder of the leaf portion, I've decided to do this as a voiceover because it was basically a bit of trial and error for me. Here I'm trying to add in veins with a fine brush, but they end up getting basically covered up by all the shading anyway. So I don't want you to bother doing this, because you'll see in the end how I actually get the effect of the veining that I wanted. So you can just ignore all this part here, but now I'm just going to go in with more of that deeper green and just add some more shading to get some depth and definition to some of the leaves. Okay, and I'm blending it out. I've actually resorted to basically drying my brush here and moving that paint around with a dry brush, because I found when it was drying and I was using too much water, it was reactivating the layers underneath and everything was getting kind of splotchy. So that's why I'm doing the voiceover, so you don't have to watch my pain as I went through it. So here I am again adding more of that dark green. I did come up with a way that it wasn't so splotchy, and that was to wet the whole remainder of the leaf and then add the paint in at the top and the darker paint, and that way it kind of bled out a little more smoothly. So that was one solution. I just didn't want you to have to watch me in real time go through all these solutions and issues. This leaf I want really, really dark because it's behind the lemon and behind the other leaf. So I'm putting in really dark paint there, and this is where you'll see me wet the entire leaf just so that dark pigment blends out a lot smoother, and I didn't have any issues. This is actually what worked the best for me, so now I know, and now you know, so you won't struggle like I did. And then I was thinking that the vein was actually a little too prominent, so when I was adding in the extra shading, I just took my brush and lightly dragged some of that active paint in through that main vein, so it just wasn't so stark white. So here I'm just doing some little final touch-ups, and yeah, that's it for the leaves. And now we'll move on to the rest of the painting. And I'm just going to go back in and add a little bit more depth to that lemon with this color here, which was the raw umber and the yellow. See if I can just add a little bit more. Okay, and like I say, if it's rough and kind of, you know, not so smooth, that's okay, because it just adds to the texture of the lemon. In fact, I can just go in and put a few more dots in. For that lemon skin. Just a little deeper at the very bottom. I'm almost tempted to go in with a wet brush and see if I can get some lines, some veins. I don't know if this is going to work. Wish me luck. I don't think I can pick up. It is working. That's not bad. Okay, so I'm just wetting my brush, tapping it off on my paper towel, and just getting some hints of some veins in there. Just like that. Okay, I'm glad I went for it. See, there's a lesson to be learned. It's just a painting, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does, it's awesome. I won't get carried away though. I mean, at least I'll try not to get carried away. So the one thing about the green I do know is that it reactivates well. So that's why it's working here. And I'll just do a couple on this guy, and then we're going to call it done. I'll speed this up though, because this is getting a little tedious. And there you go, there is your finished lemon. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that you found it helpful. You saw me struggle through a few issues I had, which is good, I think, for you guys to see that, because it shows you how I fix it or how I just let it go and let it be. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me and supporting my channel as always, and I will see you next time.